At 3:46 on a regular Thursday afternoon, I pulled into the pickup lane at Maple Ridge Elementary, thinking about dinner homework and whether I'd remembered to sign that stupid math folder when suddenly two police cruisers slid sideways and blocked the exit like I was about to flee a crime scene, and one officer stepped out with his hand already resting on his holster. Yeah, that happened. And in that exact moment before anyone even spoke, my body knew what my brain hadn't caught up to yet. This wasn't a misunderstanding, this was going to be a lesson. I'm Renee Carter, and on that day, I wasn't thinking about anything except my daughter Ava, 8 years old, third grade glitter backpack, the kind of kid who still waves from the classroom window when she sees your car. I could already see her through the glass, her face lighting up for half a second before it tightened because she saw the lights too. And if you're a parent, you know that feeling. That instant drop in your chest when your kid looks scared and you don't yet know why. The officer walked up and said, "Ma'am, step out of the vehicle." No hello. No explanation. Just that. I honestly thought he had the wrong car, so I said calm, polite the way you do when you're trying to keep things normal. "Hi, is there a problem?" He told me they'd received multiple calls about a suspicious vehicle and that I was trespassing on school property. Trespassing. At my kid's school. I held up the early pickup form I'd gotten signed that morning and said, "I'm here for my daughter, I have documentation." He didn't even look. Just waved his hand and said, "I'm not reading that. Step out." Now let me be clear about something. I'm not new to being watched. I've lived long enough in this skin to know the look, the pause, the assumptions people don't even realize they're making. But this wasn't a store or a sidewalk or a traffic stop. This was a school. This was supposed to be safe. And suddenly I had parents staring phones, lifting engines, idling behind me like an audience waiting to see what kind of show I'd put on. His partner, younger, quieter, ran my plates and came back saying everything was clean, registered locally. And the first officer, Officer Harlan, barely acknowledged him. "I'm lead on this," he snapped. That phrase alone told me everything. Facts weren't going to matter as much as control. Then the school secretary came out. Older white woman, clipboard cardigan buttoned all the way up. She looked at me and said to the officer, "Not to me, I've never seen her before, she doesn't belong here." And I remember thinking, wow, how easy it is to erase someone with one sentence. I wanted to say something sharp, something true, but I didn't, because I've learned that once people decide who you are, any emotion just becomes evidence. The principal followed her out, asked the officer what was going on, never once asking me. I explained again my daughter's name, her class, the enrollment, the reason I was there. The younger officer radioed dispatch to confirm, and dispatch did clearly over the air. My name. My daughter's name. Verified. End of story right now. Officer Harlan waved it off and muttered something about probably a warrant loud enough for parents to hear. You know what that does? It plants a story where there doesn't need to be one. Parents started chiming in. One man behind me said, "How do we know she's safe? I've never seen her either." Like familiarity is the same thing as legitimacy. Another mom snapped back that I had paperwork and they should leave me alone. And right there, without anyone saying it outright, the line split. People deciding which version of me they believed in. The principal puffed himself up and said I needed to be removed from school grounds for a full background check citing policy. I laughed, just a short, shocked laugh, because it was so absurd it almost felt surreal. I asked what policy allowed that when enrollment was confirmed. He said they could refuse access to anyone they deemed a potential threat. A potential threat. Me sitting in a sedan holding a piece of paper waiting for my kid. At that point, I did the only thing I could think of to protect my daughter. I made a phone call. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just said, "I'm being detained at pickup. Can you come get Ava inside and keep her calm?" Then I told the officer I'd wait in my car, but I wasn't leaving until my child was released safely. His jaw tightened and he said, "That's not how this works." And what he meant was this only works if you do exactly what I say. Inside my chest, everything was buzzing. Not panic exactly, more like hyper-awareness. Every word, every movement felt weighted. I could feel Ava watching through the window, trying to understand why her mom was suddenly the center of something wrong. And that's the part people don't talk about enough. It's not just what happens to you, it's what happens to the people watching you be treated like that. A few minutes later, the superintendent called the principal and he answered on speakerphone because of course he did. He described me as an unidentified woman claiming to be a parent. The superintendent asked if enrollment was verified. He said yes, technically, but that I fit some vague safety bulletin description. When she asked what bulletins he fumbled, "It just doesn't feel right," he said quietly. And that sentence right there, when facts lose to feelings, that's where things go wrong. School security arrived, a guy named Marco Reyes. calm, solid, the kind of presence that actually de-escalates things. He looked at me and I saw recognition flash across his face. He positioned himself subtly between my car and the officers. Officer Harlan noticed and asked if he knew me. Marco said he was there to help. The principal ordered him to search my vehicle. Marco hesitated and said they needed probable cause. The principal insisted. Marco did a slow walk around, looked through the windows, came back and said there was nothing. Legal. Clean. Then my daughter's teacher walked Ava outside. Ava spotted me and started toward the car, and Officer Harlan stepped in front of her and told her to stop. My child froze, her face crumpled. Her teacher's voice shook as she said this was traumatizing and that I had every right to be there. The principal told her to take Ava back inside. And bless that woman, she didn't move. She said no. And I will never forget that, because when you're being pushed around by authority, it matters when someone else is willing to risk something to say the truth. At 4:28, Officer Harlan came back to my window and told me to step out. I was under arrest for trespass. I asked calmly on what grounds, since everything was verified. He said I refused to leave when ordered. His partner tried again to intervene, saying dispatch confirmed everything. Officer Harlan shut him down and pulled out handcuffs. I stepped out slowly, hands visible. And as I turned, my jacket shifted and the badge on the lanyard underneath swung out just enough for Marco to see it. His eyes went wide. He leaned toward the younger officer and whispered urgently. The younger officer tried again, and then the cuff clicked shut on my wrist. That sound is louder than people realize. It cuts through